Welcome to our second video session of looking at life from a more spiritual point of view. Let's now try to answer to some degree the question, what is life really? This is a question that has been asked countless of times and in countless ways. And ever since humanity has had the mental capacity to concern itself with such matters. It would appear, however, that many of us, from the time that we come here until we're maybe 30 or 40 years of age, we don't tend to concern ourselves with many of life's age-old questions. On the other hand, when many of us become closer to 50 or 60 years of age and begin to approach a time in our lives which for many of us are the sunset years of our time here, we more often find ourselves reflecting upon the life that we have lived. We may wonder what we've accomplished in this life. There are some people who consider even further, wondering why we come here to this life and what purpose, if any, there is to this period of experience that we call life. A period of existence, that is, excuse me. Is life an illusion? Is it a dream or a state of mind or maybe even a state of consciousness? With a little thought, perhaps we can shed some light on this most interesting phenomenon called life. Maybe it should be stated at this time, however, that even if the information and ideas here do not agree with your own thinking on the subject, it's nevertheless hoped that you will find the information here to be both interesting and worthwhile. Be it known that God, by whatever name you may know Him, is the source of all things. From that source we have come in order to grow and develop spiritually to the point when we will finally be able to return to Him in a state significantly more perfect and more worthy than when we departed. The so-called fall of man took place when we dropped or fell from a higher level or vibrational frequency of existence to the lower frequencies of the material or physical world of existence. As a result, we're constantly working, at one level of our existence or another in preparation to return to that beautiful source. What is described here encompasses a portion of that preparatory work. Before coming to this physical earth plane, we exist in a place that many people often call the other side. It is in actuality a plane of existence that's made up of a range of vibratory frequencies that are too high for our five physical senses to realize, and we're normally therefore unaware of it on a conscious level. Conversely, we are aware of the range of vibratory frequencies that can be realized by our five senses: sound, physical, light, etc. Just as we're unable in a single incarnation to learn all the lessons that life in this material world has to offer, neither can the lessons or the knowledge needed to advance in our higher existence be learned all at once. We do the work there that we are able to do, and then when we are ready, we make the decision to advance to the next higher level. We then work there at that higher level to prepare ourselves for advancement to an even higher level of existence and work, which then prepares us for a yet higher level, and so on. Before we move on to each higher level there, on that other side, we must decide whether or not we have fully prepared ourselves to take that step. Because if we do take the step, and then at that next higher level make an error, the higher the level, the more serious are the consequences of making such an error. We must therefore decide whether we are fully prepared to advance to that next level of existence, or whether we need additional preparation that could require us to reincarnate once again on this physical plane. In many such cases, the decision is made to reincarnate on the physical earth plane. Although there are obviously many exceptions, this is typically or generally a cycle of approximately 140 years, about 70 of which are spent on the physical plane, with a similar amount of time on the higher plane. The time involved in each location can vary, depending on the needs of the personality involved, and they can vary significantly. As you know, many people live much longer than 70. Excuse me. Once a decision is made that additional lessons are needed in this physical world, we must then choose other entities to be our mother and our father on this physical plane, and appropriate agreements and arrangements must be made with them at that higher level. Once they've been born onto the earth plane and the necessary years have passed to allow them to grow up and come together as adults, when the time then does come that the mother's pregnancy is at hand, if that embryo is to be the one which will have the body that we are to inhabit, then we, at a higher level of existence, become involved, perhaps even before the embryo is formed, in helping to create the body that has been chosen for the life experiences that are needed, even to the point of choosing the RNA and DNA for that embryo. That's why I made the statement that perhaps even before the embryo was formed. We also make many other decisions about the formation of the body into which we will later enter and reside at the first breath of birth. These decisions are based upon the knowledge that we possess at that higher level of existence regarding the lessons that we need on the earth plane. For example, we may have in past incarnations been uncaring or unfeeling or without compassion or even cruel to some particular individual or to some segment of the population, such as people of color, or people of low economic status, or people who've been challenged with mental and or physical difficulties. If so, then we may decide at that higher level of existence that there is a need for us to have the same life experiences while in this new body that we have approached incorrectly and dealt with incorrectly in the past when dealing with others who were living similar experiences. The parents that we choose and the life circumstances that will be surrounding the family unit are chosen with all of these things being considered. This then allows us to have the opportunity to learn by, in effect, walking in the other person's shoes literally during this lifetime. We may therefore choose, meaning that we at that higher level of consciousness, not at the physical conscious level, because we're not yet born, we're living on the other side. We may choose to make the choice to create and live in a body of color perhaps, or to be a person in poverty, or a person who's mentally and or physically challenged. It's generally with knowledge of these things that the higher self chooses, reaches agreements, and makes arrangements with those who will be the parents. And those things then are prearranged prior to the time that the embryo is formed and begins. Sadly, there are people even today who have yet learned so little of the lessons of compassion and love that they will hear the statements immediately preceding this and conclude that anyone whom they see in difficulty is there only because that's where they deserve to be and have chosen to be, and therefore why bother to feel compassion or to try to help them or even to care? To draw such conclusions would be very unwise indeed. Such an attitude is a reflection of the fact that there are important lessons not yet learned, and that is almost certain to bring negative karmic repercussions. Getting back, though, to the subject at hand, however, we do make those decisions about this body, therefore, and the decision-making process continues at that same higher level of consciousness up to the time of birth and even beyond, continuing on throughout life as we will discuss further. I believe now, however, that this would be a good time to digress briefly and make a point of saying that at the time of birth, when the first breath enters the body of the newborn, the spirit of the entity that is to occupy that body enters with that first breath. The Judeo-Christian Bible tells us that it is at that time that the child becomes a living soul. In Genesis 2:7, quote, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his life, or his nostrils, the breath of life, and man became a living soul." End quote. Now that happens when the spirit containing the spark of life, the life force, that is a part of the spark of God that lives within each of us, enters the body with that first breath. It is that spirit containing that spark of life, the life force, that constitutes what determines that the child or person is alive. Without that, the child has not begun life on its own. A person of any age without that spark or life force, once the spirit permanently leaves, ceases to have life in this physical material existence, until the time that the person's spirit, bringing with it that spark of life, enters with the first breath. The life in the embryo is an extension of the life of the mother. This statement should not be wrongly interpreted as an endorsement of the practice of what has come to be called abortion. That is a separate subject with its own very significant karmic considerations, and we will not be discussing it further here, although I do discuss it in a different series of videos. Let us now return to the task of explaining what transpires after the birth. After that time, decisions are made and guidance is given by that higher aspect of ourselves. Now remember, that's us. That's us. It's not some higher other being, some entity outside of us. That's us. But it is a higher level of our existence, a higher consciousness. So, after that time, as I said, decisions are made and guidance is given by that higher aspect of ourselves that is often called by many the higher self. A nudge here, an idea there. These things continue throughout our lives as the higher self guides us as needed, so that we will at least have the opportunity to correctly make decisions that we have made incorrectly in times or even incarnations past. In other words, we can rest assured that the higher self will inevitably guide us to the life experiences and decision-making opportunities that we need. The decisions that we, at a conscious level, make at those times, however, are up to us, because at the conscious level, as well as at the higher level, at both levels now, we are agents of free will. If you have carefully listened to what's been said here, you should come to a very important conclusion. This life is not an accidental happening, and nothing in it is accidental. Now let it be made clear, however, that the previous statement doesn't mean that we should spend all of our time, or even a significant portion of our time, minutely analyzing various aspects of every one of life's events. If you were to do that, you'd have no time for anything else, and you wouldn't get much living accomplished, and that's what you come here for, living. Although the following statement should not be equated to the idea that, although the following statement should not be equated to the idea that we should live it up every day, however, the life is meant to be lived, as I said, so that we can experience and benefit from the life experiences that we encounter each day. Knowing, however, that life is not an accident can allow us to realize that there may be, from time to time, events that are significant enough that we would be wise to take a moment to pray for guidance to approach and deal with them more perfectly or properly, and to learn from them any needed lessons. Use this knowledge wisely, therefore, as you travel on your journey through this life. I thank you for watching. Part 3 will continue where we left off here. Again, thank you.